in many cases, they'll actually leave the job. I've seen that happen. I've heard of one case, a man in Australia told me that, and what he was put through, he was nearly committed suicide by this psychopathic supervisor. And everything he told me about this guy was spot on, definitely a psychopath. But what the guy had done a few years ago was he got an inter-office envelope, including it addressed to himself, and he got passages from Robert Hare's book Without Conscience, listing the traits and how psychopaths operate in the workplace. He photocopied them, put them all in a memo saying, we should be aware of this, blah, blah, not mentioning any names, and mailed it to everybody in the office, including himself, so no one knew where it came from. And the psychopath saw it and was literally gone out of his job in a couple of days. So, yeah, knowledge is the way to get them. And they know that if they know that you're on to them, they will not have any interest in you anymore, because you're no longer literally a source of supply for them. So knowledge is power.
Great, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Herm. Up next is Uranus Rising.
Thomas, to quote philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, he says, I am responsible for him without even having taken on responsibilities in his regard. His responsibility is incumbent on me. It is responsibility that goes beyond what I do. Usually, one is responsible for what one does oneself. I say that responsibility is initially for the other. This means I am responsible for his very responsibility. Do you think that we have a responsibility to psychopaths to not collude with their behaviors, and in fact, to hold them accountable for their actions? Would you think that doing so whilst holding compassion for their suffering, because I think they're hollow mannequins, as you say, as well as the suffering that they have caused others, would be a step towards fulfilling both ours and their responsibilities, whilst resisting a savior-hero mentality? And I'm thinking especially on a social, cultural, and global level.
Well, first thing I'd like to say is that psychopaths are not suffering. This is a dangerous assumption. And psychopaths certainly don't want to be cured. They absolutely love being psychopaths. They've all told me that. They see themselves as free, feral, unbounded by social rules. And they see things like compassion and empathy as just useless obstacles between humans and their goals. So no psychopath is suffering. No psychopath is suffering. No psychopath, there is nothing in there to give them a sense of self-realization. They do not sit down and they do not lie down in bed at night and think to themselves, oh, I'm a psychopath, this sucks, I've got to find a better way to live. That doesn't happen. They are pathologically driven to be predators, and they love every minute of it. Even if they were going to get the electric chair or be hung, and they stole a pack of cigarettes out of the executioner's pocket, they would smirk and get a grin and a rush because they pulled them under scam. They live in a very strange, almost in the moment, in a sort of a feral moment. They have no concept of past and future in terms of any kind of self-realization. So we can't cure them, but we can't oppress them either. We can't round them up and gas them or shoot them and things like that, because that's not what we are. Empathic human beings don't behave like that. Psychopaths do. Mm-hmm. So we have to find an accommodation. Okay, the accommodation is, and it's the same story. It's a mantra I use over and over again. If you know someone is a psychopath, the only rule is no contact ever again, because there will be no meeting in a middle ground to discuss anything. There will be no arbitration. There will be no negotiation. The psychopath will always target, prey, and manipulate you, and they'll always lie to you. So you get away from them and you get on with your own life. How do we deal with the psychopaths in charge and in power? Well, the same thing as, again, non-compliance. Don't disconnect yourself as much from the system as possible, because the system is dependent on our participation within it, and that includes us doing things like even being angry and being almost marching in the streets, because they want that, because that allows them to crack down on our civil rights even more. So I'm a great believer in non-compliance, just like Gandhi and just like MLK did, and I'm a great believer in detaching yourself from a toxic individual or situation. We can do nothing as yet to cure them. I don't believe we ever will, because we don't even know what consciousness is. I mean, it's a complete mystery to science. They prefer not to even think about it, because they really can't grasp it, because they can't weigh or measure consciousness. And that's all I can really say about the situation. That we detach ourselves from the psychopathic control grid, both at a personal level. And what may happen, this may be being naive on me, but if everyone knows about psychopaths and how they function, psychopaths are not very creative. They're certainly not dynamic. This is one of the things, like I was talking to, I think it was Herb there, when he said, my brother was just like what you described. That's because psychopaths are all the same. It's just spooky how similar they all are. And that's because they've developed a predator's brain. It's they've got the tools that they need that is the only one they have. So if we can spread this knowledge without fear, without witch hunts, we can not banish them to the margin society. Excuse me, but they won't be able to target us as easy, and maybe they'll behave themselves not because they're learning to be good, but because they may have no other choice. And that's my suggestion.
Yeah. Well, the no contact on a personal level, I can absolutely see how that will work. But what about on a public level? And I know you suggested shunning and not getting involved and all of that, but, we are impacted. We do have to have some contact with society. So, and given that, most of the leaders of our cultural, political, corporate systems are, in this category, what else can we do besides education, and how far can we go to shunning them? And by the way, I do want to support your suggestion about not getting into, going into the streets and fighting.
Yeah, no, they love that stuff. Yeah, okay. My suggestion would be, on a personal level, to disconnect as much from the system as possible. Living off the grid if you can. Grow your own food, learn your own skills. Don't be shopping. Learn how to just be more independent. And you will find on a personal level, it changes you as a person. You get a lot more confidence and stuff like that, and you're less likely to be manipulated and damaged by. Switch off your TV. Better still, throw the thing away, because that's the greatest delivery system for psychopathic behavior on earth. And with the knowledge thing, the psychopaths in charge will have to actually modify their behavior, because people won't vote for them, because they'll all say, "What's the point? They're all psychopaths." And if you take it, then they will lose their mandate, and then they won't be able to pull it off as much as they can. Now, so again, it's back to education. I mean, most people will never wake up. They just won't. It's just the way the human race is.
Right.
But the 100 monkeys thing is real. It's so many. So that's the best we can hope for. Yeah. And also personal independence, and that's a good thing. But when you see something, like the laws that they bring in are these appalling laws that they do.
Oh gosh.
That basically make us all criminals, and they can lock us up. Well, rather than some people going and listening to Alex Jones and people like that screaming about it, just don't get yourself into any trouble. Kind of a thing. Keep a low profile, like what you guys are doing here, not using your real names and stuff like that. That's very good stuff. And then be aware of what they're doing, but don't let them own you. Don't let them control you. Don't be in a situation where they're aware of you and stuff like that. I mean, then that's a good thing. I think that's non-compliance and no contact is the way to do it.
Yeah. And maybe if 100 monkeys of us can become invisible and educated about this, and we might be able to get them to not function at least. Maybe we can pay them off to go to Mars or something.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Uranus Rising. And next we're going to move to the category of responses. And Thomas, would you outline what you see as the most helpful process of healing for those individuals who have been harmed by psychopathic behavior? And how important is it to not only become informed, but also to find appropriate support? And further, how does one find support that doesn't turn into a collective abuse identity, revenge hype, or other such unhelpful avenues?
Well, the first thing, when someone's recovering is no contact. And no contact is not just talking to them. That's not looking up their picture on Facebook, not wondering about them, because rumination is the way the psychopath will still be existing in your consciousness. So you have to sort of almost like go turkey on them. You'll have to sort of do things like, the obvious things not to do would be to like turn to alcohol and things like that. And I'm very much against psychotropic drugs that are prescribed by psychiatrists, because what happens is when a person who's been badly damaged by a psychopath goes into a psychiatrist, the psychiatry has a tendency to blame them, so they give them drugs like Xanax and stuff like that. And this stuff is not good. This stuff is really bad. So I would start with that. Now we're a very lucky generation now, because we have the internet and there's lots of support on the internet now. And I would say the vast majority of groups are not witch hunt. They're genuinely concerned about the people. The victims, including my own psychopathfree.com. I will not allow any kind of revenge on that thing. It's because that's breaking no contact, because they're still obsessed with the psychopath, that kind of thing. So the best way is to like help them to heal. So things like they're going to have to sort of try and stay away from alcohol, find people who will support them and not judge them by saying things like, you brought it on yourself, that kind of thing, because that's not what a real friend does. A real friend supports you no matter what. Like, if you've been damaged by somebody, they will be there for you and they won't judge you, they'll just support you. That's very important. So if you have a friend like that, you're going to really need them and hold on to them. You're going to have to be aware that your body has gone through very, very profound chemical changes, and it's going to take about 2 years for those chemical changes to find their balance again. And the best way to do that is to work through the process. There's nothing wrong with hating the psychopath, even if it's the most hatred that you've never felt in your life, because that hatred is part of the healing process. Once you don't act out violence or anything like that, just think it in your head, it will eventually burn out into apathy, and it'll actually help you heal quicker. Another thing would be not to try and warn people about the psychopath. Just don't, because you're also breaking no contact when you do that, and you're also not forgetting about them. You're still involved with them, that kind of thing. It's very unhealthy to try and do that. So, and that's the way to do it. And then there's things like I've got in my back of my books, I have educations on how to deal with dreams. Is an interesting one. When people have come out of a relationship with a psychopath, they have the most strangest dreams, and it's all part of their body their subconscious trying to heal them. And you'll often find that these dreams are very powerful